they were saying that, well, the whiskey, it'll help with your consumption as well.
Sure. I say that to myself all the time.
History, I'd like to follow me down the rabbit hole. History, I'd like to, frankly, I want to know.
Hi, this is episode 64 of HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody. And the HILF today is Doc Holliday with guest actor and comedian Brandon Gibson. Now, my guess is that you can picture Doc Holliday, and it's probably that smoke show Val Kilmer in the 1993 movie Tombstone, right? I'll be your Huckleberry, which is honestly, it's a damn accurate historical portrayal. You'll be a daisy if you do. I mean, he actually said that, you guys. We'll discuss. Now, Doc was part of the infamous shootout at the OK Corral, an event that would not only define his life, but the history of the town and the Old West itself. But that gunfight only lasted about 1 minute, and it was a winding and bloody road both to and from that infamous day. Now, my guest, Brandon Gibson, is a buddy of mine, a father of 3, and as nuts for this shit as I am. Let's get started.
I'm salivating. You're saying all this stuff, and I feel drool. You know, like when you put a Jolly Rancher in your mouth, and the drool, double that. That's what I'm feeling right now. My tingly jaws, that whole thing.
You're salivating for history. You're wet for history.
I am dripping.
That makes 2 of us. This is going to be great. I want to fill people in on how we know each other, because for those of you who don't know the Los Angeles kind of comedy actor scene, it is one of the biggest in the world and also a very small town.
Tiny, especially the deeper you get into it, you start to realize, it's very small.
And if you live in this town and are working in the business, watching commercials is like just a rotating bar of your friends.
Yep.
And you are one of those. You are in so many TV shows. You've done movies. You do dramatic roles. You do comedic roles. We know each other from the Universal Studios Hollywood, the entertainment capital of LA. As live improv actors. Let's see, Fresh Off the Boat, Blackish. Can you tell us, Brandon, what's cooking in your professional life right now?
Well, I've got a show coming out on Tubi. Fox bought Tubi some time ago, and they're trying to, from what we understood, clean up their crap and get some decent stuff on there. And we were lucky enough to have fallen in with a show that we shot the pilot for this thing back in January of 2020, and we all know what happened there.
Let's see. Oh yeah.
Yep, it was a cold winter. That's all. That's the only thing that happened.
That was it. That was so chilly.
I wore 2 jackets. So the show kind of, all the plans for the show died. And then once things started opening up again, they got things, the pilot, they got into festivals. We got some attention. It turns out we ended up getting, they gave it to me and said, we want to see the story arc. We like this. And I had that. They said, okay, we'd love to see the episodes. I didn't have those. No. Because the show went no further. So luckily, this is going to sound strange, at the time I was down after having cervical surgery, so I had nothing to do but sit at the house. Right. And I had all this creative energy pent up, so I banged out 4 episodes in 3 weeks.
Holy Hannah.
And they took the first draft and said, yes, let's roll with it. Now, it's a drama. I don't usually write drama stuff. It's all comedy for me. Yeah. But anyway, long story short, we ended up going into production, and we shot the show last year, and it's slated to come out at the end of the summer, early fall this year. Yes. It's called Spilled Paint. I directed the episodes. I wrote the episodes, and I'm starring. I'm the main bad guy.
This is so fucking cool, and I've seen some clips of it, and you're super scary. And I know you as one of my Stanleys, my sweet honey. We reach out in front of the buildings and link hands and say things like, "Isn't he handsome? I know he's not eye candy," and we giggle and we laugh. Yep. I'm watching these clips of you, dude. You scary, man. You got tattoos on your neck and shit. You're a super scary bad guy, and your type is sort of a Joe Pesci. I feel like you have sort of because your comic roles are very physically comic, and you're kind of the nerdy dad, and oh geez, this guy is gonna be. And when you turn on spooky dude. Fuck, dude,
It was
great.
fun.
It's
really
really
fun.
good. It's really good.
Yeah. It's it's sort of like if you've ever seen 1 Hour Photo, Robin Williams,
Yeah.
the dark he turns on in that. I just kept trying to put that up there. Think, okay, that's where I want to get. That's what I want to be. I'm looking forward to it coming out. Got 6 episodes. It's called Spilled Paint. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what everybody thinks of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have links to it in the show notes. So if you guys are manically writing something on a pad in your passenger seat, don't panic. You can click on the link later when you get to the show notes. You were also one of my earliest fans. I recall coming into work after I had launched HILF and you were like, I listen, I love it. I want to fuck Doc Holliday.
Yep.
And I was like, wow,
Yep.
this is so exciting. I hope people continue to be this excited about it. And I put Doc Holliday in my back pocket. And then you were down and out.
Yep.
For a minute,
a while.
writing television shows, etc. And when I saw that you were like moving around again, I like pulled the book. Look at this thing. I'm showing my friend Brandon the book I got.
Yep.
For those of you who listen to like every episode and are crazy, you remember the Aleister Crowley book where I was like, this fucking guy, because it was like this huge biography, similar sort of scope of book, but I love this guy.
So good. I read the same one.
You did? Yep. Okay, fantastic. This is called Doc Holliday, The Life and Legend by Gary L. Roberts. It is so fantastic, but I want to know, first of all, why you were like, Doc Holliday girl.
All right. So for me, I mean, if you see me, I'm easily the guy you could just walk right past and not even notice that I'm there. I'm not the guy that when I walk into a room, people go, oh, who is that? I am as vanilla, average white guy as you can get. Now, I'm not saying that to be self-deprecating. I just know who I am. You know, I'm Don Knotts without the bug eyes, right? So that said, in learning about Doc Holliday, he and I were very similar in stature, in look, and he was always one that would test the waters. And I grew up in a very structured environment when I, as a kid, until my parents split up. And when they split up, it was kind of around the same time Doc started getting loose. And so I'm like, oh, he gets loose. I'm getting loose too. This is like, so I really connected with his way of breaking out. And the more I learned about him, the more I'm like, holy crap, would I have been this guy? Could I have been this guy? Or like this guy?
Yeah.
Now, I think he had a whole lot more luck on his side than I would have in that time. However, I don't know, there was something about him that I just connected with. And so I've been super fascinated and trying to learn more and more about him as I got older.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking at the cover. There's only a couple of grainy photos that they can only do so much with.
Yep.
To show us what Doc Holliday looks at. But I have to tell you, friends, that as I'm looking at the picture on the cover of this book and my friend Brandon, like, there's a resemblance, I'm not gonna lie. It's great. Even your mustache right now is, I mean, I don't know if you did that on purpose, but it's fucking working. Yeah. It's fantastic. And we also talked a little bit in advance. And I asked you kind of, because I know that you have been loving this guy and know a lot about him. So kind of like, what can I, like as any good fuck, like how can I serve you? How can I make this the most pleasurable for you, man? And you said that in particular, you wanted to kind of suss out the myth from the truth because he is one of those larger than life characters. His life outside of Tombstone, you highlighted that gunfight is fucking stoked. It's awesome. It's a fucking great moment, but it is a moment. And there's so much more before and after, right? And I have wrapped my legs firmly around this history and your request, and I'm very, very stoked. This is a edible history. It is delicious.
Yep.
And Doc Holliday is one player, and that biography obviously nails him. I wanted to do another book about Tombstone and the Earps and that colored the whole picture in even more detail. And so I read another book called Tombstone, and that one was written in 2020. And one of the great things about it is it does incorporate some information that we didn't have before. It's called Tombstone, the Earp Brothers, Doc Holliday, and the Vendetta Ride from Hell.
Oh God, that just, I mean, you saying that, I didn't think I could get wetter, but I just did.
I'll get you a towel. We gotta go clean up. We'll get a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if that wasn't enough, one of our best sources for that time, the shootout in Doc's time in Tombstone, is a woman named Clara Clara Spalding Brown, who lived in Tombstone for exactly 2 years, from 1880 to 1882.
What a time.
She is a fucking fantastic writer, and she starts just by writing letters home. Now, she's from Delaware, but she's writing her letters to her family in California. And as often happened, newspapers would be like, this bitch is where? This sounds great. Our readers are so hungry for what's happening in this Western wild territory. So her letters start getting printed in the San Diego newspaper and are then later put into a book. And I mean, talk about source, man. It is a nearly day-by-day, play-by-play background on the characters. She occasionally does interviews. She even steps back and talks about how the local papers are talking about it and who on the local staff works for whom and how they factor. I mean, it is...
And that's a huge deal in and of itself.
Huge. The politics, the media. I mean, it's a very modern story, right?
Yep.
In that way. Kate Elder, who is Doc Holliday's common-law wife and a very unreliable source.
Yes.
But a very exciting source.
Yep.
She also wrote a book. So did Wyatt Earp, who's also mostly a reliable source. Near the end of his life, when he was speaking the most, he was literally talking to Hollywood cowboys in Los Angeles in the 1920s and 30s and helping them figure out how to play a better cowboy. So it's...
Yeah.
And then, sister, the court papers, the newspapers, because there's trial drama in here.
I want to dig into that so badly. I see. I've got to read that.
Oh, I'll get you, girl. You get the hints to my show notes. I got links to all this stuff.
Love it.
The first big question is like, why do we remember Doc Holliday's name? We know the shootout at the OK Corral is a big deal, but there's a lot of other people involved. And we don't remember their names. They don't all get biographies like this. They're not played by Val Kilmer. They're not curling the toes of my friend Brandon Gibson, right?
Nope.
And it wasn't even like he had the most head count of bodies. He wasn't the most violent. He wasn't the most handsome.
Nope.
He didn't live long enough to write his own biography. Like, why? He didn't live long enough to really build up his own reputation. And his name is great. Doc Holliday don't hurt. It rolls off the tongue. But check out these names. Curly Bill Brocious, Texas Jack Vermillion, Turkey Creek Jack Johnson, Hoodoo Brown, Johnny Ringo.
Yep.
These guys are just as nasty, more handsome, higher blood count. We're also in the shootout at the... We don't... Remember, nobody is their picture up in their locker.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's funny because you say that, and that's another thing I love about this time frame is that there's so many great nicknames. Everybody's got a nickname. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you just want, okay, why did you get that nickname? And there's not a lot of, like you said, there's not a lot of story that backs up, okay, this happened and this happened and this happened. And I want to find out more about those individuals. And I wish there were books or some source material to where I could go back and go, okay, this guy's nicknamed this because of this.
Yeah.
And I want to learn more about that too, but in time.
Of course. And some of them are like, you hear and you go, oh, of course. There's a joke, though, about Texas Jack Vermillion in particular.
Okay.
Where they asked him, they said, why do they call you Texas Jack? And he says, because I'm from Virginia. It's a real dialogue with a real interviewer. And they were like, okay. But other ones aren't as obscure. Like Kate Elder, Doc's common law wife, is referred to by virtually everybody as Big Nose Kate.
Big Nose Kate.
And if you take a look at a picture, it's not exactly a mystery.
That's true.
And they would say because she was a whore. She was a prostitute. She was a lady of the evening.
Yeah.
And when you went to a whorehouse and you wanted a particular whore, well, there's a lot of Kates in here. Mm-hmm. And she probably has about 6 last names because everyone fucking here is running from something.
Yeah.
So who knows what the last name isn't going to help anybody, right?
Yep.
So Big Nose Kate. And they go, oh, yep, she's
right over there. Door number 6. Yeah.
She's right over there. Exactly.
You know, it's funny because some of the things that I've looked up in terms of Kate specifically is that the one thing that I've seen on a few different occasions, apparently she had a smoking hot body.
Oh, yeah.
So you look at her face and you go, oh got it. Got that.
Kate.
I see that. Yeah. And then you think, okay, that's why Doc kept going back and kept going back. I got that.
The hot body Kate probably would have been a better seller. I don't know why she didn't go with the obvious.
Yep.
That's hard to say. And Doc Holliday is John Henry Holliday. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us why we call him Doc?
It was a dentist and a very successful dentist, really smart, really educated, and he actually went to one of the top dentist schools in Philadelphia, graduated top of his class, and he worked. I guess there were multiple people around the country at the time that wanted to work with him. So it wasn't anything for him to go into a new town and join up with somebody else or get a business established. And he's actually. The man knew how to make a grill.
He really did. And he won awards. And you know what? When you trace Doc's movements, you can often find him in these years before Tombstone, before he becomes something of a media celebrity. They find where he was because he would either take out articles and advertisements as the dentist in town.
Yep.
And there would be receipts and things that proved that he had been a dentist in town. But he was never in any given town very long.
Not for very long.
But it was, his side hustle for sure was as a dentist. And I'm so excited to get into this dentist from Georgia who becomes one of the most famous gunfighters in American history. I'm going to start us out with a story. To set the mood. This story takes place in March of 1881, which is several months before the shootout at the OK Corral. And it is aboard a stagecoach that is traveling between Tombstone and the city of Benson. Mm-hmm. This is a place where the railroad goes to some of these huge hubs. But then, of course, just like now, once you get to the larger stop, the goods, the cash, the services, the passengers have to get on stagecoaches, horse-drawn wagons, to then go on these post roads and these military roads off to these smaller towns like Tombstone and Benson, which means this is, of course, when they are ripe for the picking.
Yep.
They have been robbed. Stagecoach operators have been murdered, not just in Tombstone, across the country. It's a huge problem. For those of you who listen to the Jesse James episode, them trains ain't exactly safe neither, girl. Like, everybody's kind of on edge. And this one is the Canneering Company's stagecoach. And the driver is a guy named Eli Bud Philpott. And riding shotgun is a guy named Bob Paul. And as they crest kind of a tall embankment, a man steps out into the road holding a gun and shouts, "Hold." And Eli Bud Philpott don't drive these things because he doesn't know what's going on. He does not stop. He yells, "I hold for no man," stands up, points his gun at the man in the middle of the road, who shoots first. Blam! Right through Bud's guts. He falls down. The horses fuck loose. Reins are loose. Now, all of us have seen this moment in the Western. The horses are running loose. The reins are dangling down. The guy who has the shotgun is holding, and he's trying to get the reins. And in the meantime, another passenger has jumped off to pursue the criminals who are running away. And poor Bud is lying there dying in the middle of the street. The sheriff of Tombstone gets news. Holy fuck, there's been another fucking robbery. Oh, fucking. He gets a posse together that includes Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp, and Morgan Earp. 3. There's more Earps, believe it or not. 3 of the Earp brothers, who are joined by Bat Masterson, their old friend who happened to be a passenger on that coach. And these fucking guys take off of their horses to get the guys who shot Bud. They are vigorous. They ride 6 days hard. 2 of their horses die of exhaustion. They walk 18 miles back into Tombstone. And the first thing they hear is a rumor from the people of the town that those 3 guys did the robbery, but there was a 4th, mysterious guy. And he is a notorious gambler, a former dentist, and a consumptive named Doc Holliday. And when Wyatt Earp hears this, he sits down, takes his hat off, and says, "Son of a bitch."
Yep.
Oh, and I wanted to tell that story to our listeners first because I think it describes Tombstone, what's going on in Tombstone, what people are thinking. It tells you a lot about Doc's general reputation leading up to what's going on. It introduces you to our key love story. And it's not sexual. I'm not suggesting it was romantic, but the love story at the center of this HILF is Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday.
Absolutely.
And it leads this stagecoach robbery directly to the bullets that fly in the OK Corral.
Yep.
He had sort of a comfortable childhood. However, he's one of those people that like it all falls apart at a really critical age because the Civil War starts. He's born in 1851. So he's almost 10 when the Civil War starts. And all his uncles and brothers and all the men go to war. And he, John Henry, is the kid left at home with mom. So one of the results of this is he is a super duper big time mama's boy.
Yep.
And he idolizes the guys. You can imagine yourself at 9, 10 years old, there's a war going on and every guy is out there but you and everything he did was playing with guns and the imagination, what filled him with what they were doing out there, this brotherhood, this violence, this heroicism, right? And it was always just right outside of reach for him. So that's the second thing. Third thing is he at home with all the girls and one of them is his cousin Maddie, who is a smoke show.
Yep.
So as a result of this whole thing, he is a mama's boy, idolizes masculinity, and in love with his first cousin.
Got a thing for family.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, okay, that's fucking nuts. That I would think defines a person. But then the war is over, and spoiler alert, they lose. And the South is decimated at the end of the Civil War. Whatever wealth or fortune or land they had is so diminished. And then his mom dies of consumption, tuberculosis. And he watches that shit, girl. His mom, who he is very, very close to, dies slowly of one of the worst diseases that's ever been. And then his dad remarries fucking fast.
Right away. And he did not like it.
And like mom had all the money too. So like dad came into the marriage with nothing and then mom died and it was devastating. So he's looking at the landscape of all this. Mom's dead. Dad sucks. Don't have any money anymore. Can't fuck my cousin. And can't be a burden either. Like I got to get out of here, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned he goes to dentist school in Philadelphia. And this is why it's so fucking nuts, Brandon, because everyone's college. I mean, you go to college, but that can be a big deal for everybody. But this is also the first time that John Henry saw Yankees in their natural habitat.
Free range Yankees. Yeah. Feral Yankees.
And he had been kind of told that it was bad and these are terrible people and these are our sworn enemies and these horrible northern liberal cities, right?
Yep.
But then when he was there at 20 in fucking college, he was like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's all right.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yep.
And he's, to your point, he's really good too.
Yeah. Yep.
He has a lot of success, top of his class. In fact, so good that when he graduates, he's too young to actually open his own.
So he had to wait to get that diploma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while he's waiting, as long as you're fucking cool and you're just hanging out and fucking hitting it.
Yeah.
How about you take up a new pastime?
Yeah, let's play some cards.
Cards. It's called, what is this called? Pharaoh? Pharaoh, I'll give it a try. Have you ever played Pharaoh? Do you know this game?
I'm loosely familiar with it. I haven't played it myself. I've seen a couple of videos on how it's played, and I can see how it could slant in a couple of different directions pretty easily. But yeah, it's all you that's pretty much all they play. Poker or Pharaoh in any of these Western movies that the common person would see.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you saw how many of these sources I've been into. They do not call it cards. They never call it poker. It is Pharaoh or it is gambling.
Yep.
Pharaoh is generally easy to learn. It goes fast and it's pretty easy to cheat.
Yep.
And it is addictive. And our boy John Henry Holliday fucking loves it.
Loves it.
Now, we don't know exactly what precipitates the next big move in his life. There are some suspicions. You know by the documents, he is a fucking great dentist. He gets to an apprenticeship. He partners up with another guy who's got his own office. They win some awards for making the best fake teeth.
Yep. Yeah, the best gold teeth.
Best gold teeth. He is impressing the masters and being brought in. And then the newspapers show that he is no longer a partner in this dental firm. And any requests for payment of debts can be sent directly to John Henry Holliday. One spends a hot minute wondering what the fuck happened there. And the bottom line is some combination of gambling and drinking. That just ruins most of the good shit he establishes for himself. This happens at the same time, he's 21, that he is diagnosed with tuberculosis.
Yep.
That fucking disease that not only killed his mom and not that long ago, but he watched how it works. And it's not a mystery. Everybody knows how this shit works. It takes 15 to 25 years to kill you. The last 4 to 5 years are fucking awful. Ulcers, coughing up slime, can hardly breathe, the debilitating diarrhea, aches, chills, impossible to move. And he still can't marry his cousin. He does actually go home for a hot minute and is like, you're becoming a nun? Great. Okay.
Awesome.
Yep.
Just puts it even further out of reach.
Yeah. What John Henry Holliday does is just keeps creeping west. Here's the list of cities that we know he went to. And sometimes he'd go back and forth, so it isn't even always in this order. St. Louis, Atlanta, Dallas, Denver, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Deadwood, South Dakota, Breckenridge, Kansas, Las Vegas, Nevada. And then he finds himself in Dodge City, Kansas.
Yep.
And this is where we start our love story.
This is where Wyatt starts blinking those beautiful eyes. Just the lash is just fluttering.
This is the story of how Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp fall in love. It is Dodge City, Kansas, 1878. And the fact is, these two had made their acquaintance before. They were familiar with each other because just like Los Angeles acting community, the gambling, saloon, Western world is a small world.
Small.
Wyatt Earp is living there in Dodge City, Kansas, and he is currently, at the moment, the assistant city marshal of Dodge City. And he's pretty good at what he does. And the reason we know he's pretty good is because he's got enemies. Okay. And primarily his enemies are among a group of people known as the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, we'll define them a little bit more with more clarity later, but it is not just a cowboy where we picture currently. A cowboy is someone in a cowboy hat who rides horses and does cowboy stuff. And they're generally a good guy, rancher, cowboy, right? We know it. Not then. At this particular time, a cowboy was a pejorative term. It was like a gangster. It was you gangster, you mafia, you cowboy. A ranchman, a rancher, a cattle hand. Those were legitimate jobs. A cowboy was just someone who was in town and fucking around.
Yeah, it's vague. It's funny. Tombstone was on last night.
Yes.
And we just happened to catch it. And my wife, I said, I was kind of dismantling a lot of the stuff. And so with the cowboy thing, I'm like, no, this means this and this means this. And this means, she goes, really? And I said, yeah, you don't realize how much of this was just smushed and then kind of picked through to make it appealing for the masses. So I said, with the cowboy, it's anything. She goes, what do they call themselves, the Cowboys? I'm like, yeah, but it's not just, it's stage robbers. It's anything. It's outlaws. It's anything and everything.
Totally. And they were loosely affiliated. It was like, we're all kind of nasty ass bad guys who will do whatever to make money. And, oh, you're robbing a thing. I'm good at that. I'll go do that. Oh, you're going to mine jump or squat or steal cattle. I'll do that. That sounds great. And it was generally them versus law enforcement. But it was real sticky because these cowboys were also the labor force.
Yep.
They live their work. They're keeping the saloons open. And sometimes the bullshit they're doing is really necessary to support these towns out in the middle of nowhere. And it's all real sticky and really complicated. But some lines were clear. And Wyatt Earp, when he knew there was a guy and he had to do the thing, or even if it's just keeping order, that drunk can't fire his gun in this particular block, then he'd have to shut it down. He's pursuing a particularly nasty cowboy, and they know Wyatt Earp, and they know that he is good at his job. And on one particular night in Dodge City, Kansas, in the Long Branch Saloon.
God, I love just saying that's just fun.
I know. The Long Branch Saloon in Dodge City, Kansas. A cowboy spots Wyatt Earp and is about to jump him. And Doc Holliday is sitting at a table playing Pharaoh, sees this impending ambush, jumps to his feet and says, "Look out, Wyatt." At the exact instance that he is pulling a revolver that was handed to him, girl, because he's not allowed to have a gun in there, but the bartender can have one. So he had gotten just enough to be like, "Can I have that revolver? There's going to be trouble." Get down, Wyatt, as he shoots that motherfucker and saves Wyatt Earp's life.
Yep.
There is a long story ahead of us. Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday have all sorts of shit. On the stand and in an interview, a really powerful interview, Wyatt Earp says this exact phrase: "I am friends with Doc Holliday because he saved my life."
Yep. I love that.
Yep.
And so when you see that in movies and you see people portray, this whole thing, I did it because he's my friend. He's my friend. That was a huge deal to the two of them. Massive deal. Like it's you have friends that you consider family. That's the thick bond that those two had for so long. And, I mentioned this to you when we talked about this earlier. You can't mention one and not mention the other because they are that thick together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because their friendship after this incident, in stone, timeless, unbroken. They have only one documented rift in their entire friendship from this point on, to the point where Wyatt goes, "God, I don't want to live in Dodge City anymore." And they both do their kind of maneuvering around, but find themselves moving together to the city of Tombstone in 1880. And the movie Tombstone demonstrates, I think, a really lovely arrival moment. The Earps are coming into town with their wives, who are drug addicts and former prostitutes, 100% true. Virgil Earp is already employed as a marshal in this town, and Wyatt Earp is going to be a rancher and a miner. He is here for silver mites. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He's already been shot and people want to shoot him in the back too much as it is. And Doc Holliday loves the look of Tombstone because it's full of gambling houses and it's full of saloons. And he's going to come into town and just be fucking awesome and maybe less sick if he could manage that.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that was one of the reasons he moved to a couple of different places that he went to, because of these healing springs.
Yes.
And he would go to try to get for his health.
Because Georgia is wet and cold.
Yep.
And Georgia's climate was terrible for sure.
Yeah. And I think there was 22 healing springs that people would just flock to. And that seemed to help his health in some regard, whether it actually did or not. It did. I mean, it made enough of a difference to make it notable in the history.
Totally. Yeah. And scientifically sound for him to do at the time.
Yep.
There is something to that, to the climate out here in Tombstone, the dryness. He is starting to feel a little bit better. He has a job as a faro dealer. He has a room. Kate is coming and going, which is kind of perfect because they fight all the time.
Nonstop.
She's got her own deal, and the Earps fucking hate her, and she fucking hates the Earps. And she's like, "Come somewhere else." And he's like, "I'm in love with Wyatt Earp, baby. Like, I'm never going to leave his side. We're best friends." And now we know, too, the deep connection that Doc had to that brotherhood. It's not just that Wyatt Earp is like a brother. He is, but Wyatt Earp also comes with brothers. Wyatt comes with all these brothers, and they love Doc, too. And that satisfies in him a real fundamental need to just be around guys in kind of a rugged era, you know?
What he looked up to so much when he was so much younger.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, you and me, we're going to have our spurs on, and we're going to go in to the middle of that shootout that made him famous the first time.
All right.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
It is not a good day in Icewind Dale. Auril, the Frost Maiden, a god, the divine embodiment of winter's fury, has withdrawn to this cold corner of the world, plunging it into endless night.
Can you repeat this harbinger of winter's name again one more time?
Auril.
Auril.
This is I Seduce the Dragon.
Gentry, I'm so sorry. I'm about to fight some kids.
God damn it.
It's a new D&D podcast. Your hands are tied behind your back. Okay, what's that face?
Am I into it?
Jesus Christ.
And a hell of a good time. You suddenly see the outline of a giant dwarf shape.
Ooh, he big.
Oh, he's so big.
Wow, he's so big. I've never seen someone take up 4 squares on Roll20.
Look for I Seduce the Dragon
I kick him real hard.
wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, outlaws. Now, before we return to Tombstone, a moment to polish the spurs of my favorite cowboys, my patrons. The latest to join the posse are Amanda B. and Edgar C. Now they join the honorable ranks of those who know that I'm a whore, but marry me anyway. All money left on the HILF's nightstand keeps me a sure thing. At least twice a month. No. To hear your name here next time and to find out what I can do for you, head over to patreon.com/HILFpodcast and
Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow.
I want to know, before we jump into the shootout and the crazy and all this,
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know, what is your favorite cinematic portrayal of Doc Holliday?
I mean, it's got to be Kilmer.
I know, right?
Even
it's so
though,
good.
like, I think a more historically accurate depiction was Wyatt Earp, the movie Wyatt Earp.
yeah.
Because I think it stayed closer to the actual facts. But here's the thing. I was talking to my wife about this last night. His story is so rich, you don't have to Hollywood it. He's got so many great things amazing, unbelievable things that happened to him. You don't have to Hollywood his story.
No.
Just tell it like it is. One of my favorite stories of when he was younger, and whether there's truth to this or not, I just love the story. But it was reported that when he was younger, he got in a tiff at school with a kid, and they said, all right, we're going to pistols. And so they decided, we're going to this place, and we're going to have pistols, and we're going to take paces. So they show up, and they're like, all right, here, pick your pistol. And he goes, no, I got one. I brought mine. And better believe it's full of shot. And they're like, no, you got to pick one of these. And I'm like, no, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
Yeah, they're like, this is a game.
And he said, well, it's not a game to me.
Yeah, Val Kilmer simply nailed Doc Holliday. Do I know because I knew Doc Holliday? No, but you've heard the list of sources I've been through. And other than being just a little bit too handsome and slightly less dying,
Yep.
the Georgia drawl, the phrases, the specific quotes, the cool, easy Southern gentleman style,
The confidence.
is mentioned by his friends, his enemies, his lovers, his acquaintances. People who have only met him once were like, what a stylish, intelligent gentleman I would never have known. Here's a story for you. He was, as you always, because he was so ill, he was a little too skinny. He had a little bit more of a vocabulary, and he dressed really well. And some cowboys come into a bar that he's in one day, know nothing about him, and start to just assume he's an intellectual city guy with no Western experience. And they start to bully him. And Doc plays the part. Oh, no. Oh, please leave me alone. And they laugh. I bet you've never had any whiskey. And they order a pint, of whiskey. It's and they force him to drink it. Oh, you drink. And he sputters and he begs for mercy. No. And they laugh. It's so funny, this fucking nerd. They get another one. They're going to make him drink another one. And as the historian notes, he gets about halfway through the second one when the cowboys start to realize that they've been conned. Because he's laughing and he's not that intoxicated. And they now start to see the snickering and the giggles of the people in the saloon who are like, buddy, if you think he's going to stop at 2, girl, you do not know. And they have a nonviolent confrontation and leave in humiliation. It is a skill of his to be a star, right? And the star that is Doc Holliday is an anonymous star leading up to the story we're about to tell. Get myself comfortable. Holy fuck, I'm so excited. We are about to go into the story of the shootout at the OK Corral.
Love it. Love it.
Now, if you're new to this one, okay, if you're a virgin, don't panic, girl. We're going to go nice and slow.
Nice and easy.
We're going to go nice and easy. We're going to hold you a hand, and we're going to start by the setting and the city of Tombstone itself. Tombstone is a little different than some other Western towns like it because once it started growing, it grew really fucking fast because they did find silver there and there was possibility for water rights and ranches. So once people got into it, they went so fast that Tombstone never got the civic opportunity to separate the gambling dens and the whorehouses and the saloons from the city hall and the nice mercantile stores and where all the horses are. Normally cities know how and they manage that.
No red light district there.
It was one of the things, Clara Brown, when she comes into town, she's like, oh my God. I mean, it's just right here. The whores go to the bank and then they go to the bathroom and then they go over there to the, I mean, it's like all right here. This is nuts. In this town, there's lots of competing forces, but it is largely the cowboys, this group we described earlier of just general renegades, adventurers, and ne'er-do-wells, versus everybody else. And I found as I was reading that when you think about cattle like cocaine, everything that happens next is going to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yep,
right?
Yep.
Because cattle are not native to the American continent. These are not buffalo. These are cattle. Cattle, these cows, this bovine creature was introduced to this continent by the Spaniards, by the first earliest European colonists that didn't come from New England, but came from the other fucking side, right? Why we got all these Santas and Monicas and such on this side was because the Spanish came here first. And this whole territory was owned by Spain and then Mexico and then the United States. But what happened is it's like an invasive species. There are hundreds and thousands of loose herds of cattle out there in these territories. And all of a sudden, we would love them. They're very valuable. And they're breeding out there, and they're doing great, and we don't have to invest. We just go get them.
Just get them.
You just go get them, and then you sell them. And they're worth a ton when you get a bunch of them, but they're also worth something just one. So you can just go get one. You just pluck it off the tree like an apple. You know what I mean? One of the things the cowboys were doing was stealing a lot of cattle from Mexico and bringing it into California and Arizona and these southern states. And that was like technically illegal. But if you're giving me a great deal on that, it's not my business
It's
where
fine.
you got it.
It'll be fine.
So there was a lot of stealing cattle from Mexico that was just sort of understood and overlooked. But then you get cowboys who are like, fuck, going to Mexico. I'm going to steal the cattle from Nevada and then sell it to a guy in Arizona. Nah. Now we start to get into much trickier territory. Ultimately, however, once the cowboys start stealing from military cattle and they start robbing these Wells Fargo stagecoaches, they have a whole new enemy, which is the banks. And that Benson stagecoach robbery that opened our episode is kind of the last fucking straw for Wells Fargo. The mayors, the politicians, the bankers are like, shut it down. This whole cowboy thing, we don't care anymore if there's good cowboys and bad cowboys and who's stealing from whom. Shut it down. And one particular guy who is starting to condense down under the pressure of this new like crackdown on his stealing cattle and all of his friends is a guy named Ike Clanton. He is one of the largest ranchers, has some of the largest quantities of cattle, and no history of purchasing them ever. Right?
Yep.
So he's in a bit of a, and he's very close with the cowboys. Who he is and how he does his business is under direct threat, and he knows it. And he's a drunk. And then we have this very important little rock in the shoe of our buddy Ike Clanton, which is that he's a snitch, right?
Yep.
As Wyatt Earp is investigating the stagecoach robbery, and he is investigating it deeply because is his buddy Doc Holliday involved? It's not completely implausible. He is friends with a few of the guys that we now know perpetrated it, and Wyatt is seriously like, fuck, I got to catch the guys who did it because that's the only way to exonerate my friend. And he's deeply, deeply committed to solving this crime. And to do so, he goes directly to Ike Clanton and says, hey, man, I need you to say who was there. Now, I'm never going to tell anybody that you told me. This is tight secret source because I know they'll kill you if you do. This is mafia stuff, right? And I'm not going to take this to the courts, but I need to know who to arrest so that I don't. And Ike tells him. It was Bill Leonard. He names them all.
Yeah.
And then, now flash forward. This is a couple years later, right? Ike is terrified that Wyatt Earp is going to tell everybody that he snitched on these cowboys because they're coming down on everybody and they're turning people against each other. And he is so fucking scared that he is about to be outed as a snitch on the cowboys to the Earps of all people that he goes downtown to Tombstone, gets absolutely blasted drunk, walks into a saloon where Doc Holliday is playing Pharaoh, surprise, and says, I know Wyatt Earp told you what I said. Which is so dumb. I mean, it's like, because I didn't do the thing he said. I mean, it's like, what?
Yep.
And Doc is, by all my sources' accounts, completely in the dark. Wyatt has not told Doc, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Because Doc's like, what? I don't know. And he's like, you know, I said what I said. And finally Doc is pushed around enough that he says, all right, let's go. Get your gun. Let's go. And Ike doesn't have a gun because you're technically not allowed to have one in town at the time. And Doc's like, let's quit yelling at me. Let's go fucking shoot each other then if that's what we're doing. And I go, I'll get my gun. You know, you will be right back kind of deal. And he stumbles out. Because this is apparently what you do. He gets his gun and whatever, but then he finds himself in a Pharaoh game with Virgil Earp.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? He just, I don't know, sits down in a chair, somebody puts cards in his hands, he's like, well, I don't mind. You know, I have a minute, Doc's not going anywhere, sure. He plays cards all night with Virgil, continues to drink. And at the end of the night, he says to Virgil Earp, tell Doc I want to fight. And if you're trying to picture, this is Sam Elliott is Virgil.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I won't. I'm not going to tell Doc that you want to fight. I think you should go home now. You're very drunk. And Ike stumbles around town, now with his gun, telling everybody, Clara fucking Brown hears about it. He wants to kill Doc Holliday and he wants to kill the Earps. They're looking for a fight. They've disrespected me for the last time. And to the point where, and Virgil's at home in bed, Morgan's at home in bed, everyone's in bed. They wake up in the morning and Virgil's like, he's still downtown? He was like, what? They're like, yeah, he's fucking mad and he's threatening all of you. And he's like, Jesus. They go to breakfast. They put their boots on and they're like, guys, Ike Clanton is like freaking. And they're like, are you fucking serious? How much time do we have to give this guy to sober up and go home already? Right? So they finally are walking out and Virgil sees him, Ike Clanton, with his guns fucking. And like a boss, you want to talk about the cinematic moments? Again, we got eyewitnesses. Virgil Earp hits him on the back of the head with the butt of his gun. And when he puts his hands up to feel his head, he just takes his guns from him.
It's a very Three Stooges moment.
It was a very and Ike's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? You took my gun. And Virgil's like, Jesus. So then he gets arrested for having guns in town. And he's thinking, all right, you're going to go to jail for literally minutes. Because he didn't technically do anything wrong. I don't know. And then you're going to sober up a little bit and you're going to calm down. But he's not. He's still heated and mad. At this point, Morgan Earp has joined them. And there's all these people gathering around. So exciting. That Morgan puts his gun down, Ike's gun, on the table in front of him and says, do something then. And there's a long pause. And everybody fucking scatters like cockroaches. Like a cartoon. Gone. Just like cloud of dust, right? And and then eventually he like makes like he's going to go for it and they take it. They're like, don't actually take it. We're not going to be stupid idiot. We're just proving that you're a pussy, you know? Finally, he's done. He's John. He's done. And then McLowry comes in. He's like, what is everybody doing to Ike Clanton? And Wyatt Earp slaps Tom McLowry on the face, just slaps him. Both of these guys, flash forward, middle of the day, Tombstone. It's been a busy morning. Everybody's fucking on fire. The Earps, who are always really cool, are like chewing and smoking cigars and like trying to calm down because they really do kind of want to fight these fucking guys.
Yeah.
And they're pushing it, right? Finally, like, Ike, your guns have been kept for you at the hotel. When you are done here, you go to the hotel, you get your guns, and you go the fuck home. Good day. And then they get a news. Ike Clanton did not go home.
No.
He has been joined by his younger brother. The McLaurys have been joined now. There's 3 McLaurys, Tom, Frank, and Bill. William Allen and this guy named Billy Claiborne, who, total coincidence, he just happens to know these guys. He's in town because he has a court date because he killed a guy. He thinks he's the second Billy the Kid. And in fact, he kind of insists that people call him the next Billy the Kid. He's a very interesting character. And this group of guys go with Ike to a gun shop. Mm-hmm. Can you think of anywhere worse? Like, I mean, I know we're in 2024, but it was like, you are in trouble for your gun. No, you go on home and you're like, you got it. I'm just first, we get all my friends.
Make a stop real quick, just on the way out. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
So they go to a gun shop, and now this word comes to Virgil and Wyatt that they're not leaving town. There's a bunch of them all together, and they just went into a gun shop. Finally, Virgil says, okay, listen, public safety, I'm a law officer. I'm going to go posse now. He's got Wyatt officially, Morgan officially, and himself. We're deputized, i.e. we can have our guns right now. And we're just going to go make sure Ike Clanton leaves town like we said a fucking while ago, and that the rest of them all go with him, right? And while they're on their way to tell them this, Sheriff Behan.
Oh, what a piece of shit.
Tell me why you think so.
Oh, God, he was in with him. He was all about self-preservation. And he did not get along with the Earps. He did not care for the Earps. He did not care for Doc. And he said that he was single-handedly trying to fix the situation while still remaining, while still keeping his name in play as a lawman and as somebody to be respected. And he said that he made sure they were disarmed.
Right. And Virgil says, okay, go ahead. I would love to not have to fucking crack skulls today. I'm exhausted. I've been up all night playing Pharaoh too, just like everybody else. It is at this point that Doc Holliday sees his buddies, these 3 Earp brothers, with their guns, looking serious, walking somewhere with determination. And by eyewitnesses and court accounts, the historical dialogue that they had next went like this.
I love this.
Doc Holliday yells to Wyatt, "You're not going to leave me out, are you?" Wyatt says, "This is none of your affair." Doc says, "Well, that's a hell of a thing for you to say to me."
I love it.
Wyatt says, "It's going to be a tough one." Doc says, "Tough ones are the kind I like."
Yep.
And he joins them as they walk, and he's whistling along the way. He's also leaving breakfast at the time, and he is wearing, they say he's dressed as a dandy, wearing a floppy hat and holding a cane. I mention this because it is exactly the way these brilliant costumers put him in the movie.
Yep.
And his clothes are the only clothes mentioned anywhere, any of this. One of the reasons you know Doc looked fucking smoking is because it's not like they're talking about what everybody's wearing and his looks like this. They're the one who's like, oh, and he looked fucking great.
Yeah.
At the point that they meet, because Doc is a good shot and they kind of know his skills, Virgil gives Doc a shotgun and takes his cane. Virgil also has a revolver on his hip, but he takes Doc's cane. It's an interesting tidbit that Doc even had a cane, but that Virgil takes it. And let me also make a note about Sheriff Behan, who is a total boob. He has also as the movie portrays, lost his woman to Wyatt. Josephine Marcus, the beautiful actress in the movie, she was dating Behan. They were engaged. They were living together. He lost his woman to Wyatt. They competed for the job of sheriff. So he has, to his credit, he has gone to Ike Clanton and the rest of the group and said, fuck off. This is a huge problem. And he says, are you armed? And they say no. And he says, well, if you are armed, you have to disarm. And they say something like, you got it, bud.
Sure.
Okay? That's all Sheriff Behan does. He does not disarm anyone. He does not confirm anyone is disarmed. And to his credit, it might have been because as he's talking to them, he hears someone say, here they come. And Behan turns and sees that Wyatt Earp, Morgan Earp, Virgil Earp, and Doc Holliday, a party of 4, are walking directly towards Ike Clanton and his group. And Behan runs over to them and says, I've disarmed them. Now, to be fair, he didn't actually declare I disarmed them, but definitely what's important to the story is that the Earps and Doc Holliday certainly heard they don't have guns, and I have disarmed them. Because what Virgil does is holster his revolver and put Doc's cane in his gun hand and walks towards the group with that cane up in the air. And he has said to many people in town who are like, do you want us to fight with you? We'll fight with you. We fucking hate these guys. And he was like, no. I don't have any intention of fighting these guys. If they are getting their horses and leaving town, we're done. I will disarm them and see them leave and we're done. It's probably not going to be a big deal. The Earp holiday party are walking up on 5 guys. Ike Clanton, his younger brother Billy, Billy Claiborne, and Frank and Tom McLowry. Their third brother isn't present at the moment. When he says, hold, I intend to disarm you, they see now, for the first time, all the guns. They can see, first they see Billy fucking Claiborne's here. We didn't even know Billy Claiborne was here. And they can see the guns on the McLowrys. And they can also see guns in the saddle boots of the horses that they're not too far from. At which point Wyatt says out loud, son of a bitch. Now the courts later debate whether it was, oh, fuck, son of a bitch, or if it was you son of a bitch, because it's used for both defense and prosecution. But a lot of people heard Wyatt be like, son of a bitch.
Right. That much is clear.
This is bad. Frank McLowry says, we will, and takes a step forward. Billy Clanton reaches for his gun at the exact same time. And Tom McLowry kind of throws open the lapels of his jacket in a way that could have been, see, I don't have any guns, or that's what I do right before I reach down and grab my guns. Wyatt pulls his revolver when he sees those motions. Keep in mind, this is happening almost at the same instant.
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp now pulls his revolver, and as soon as Doc sees Wyatt pull his revolver, he exposes that shotgun and holds that on the group at the same time. The first shot fired is Wyatt's, and it is directly into the belly of Frank McLowry, who, a second gunshot comes from Billy Clanton at Wyatt, but it misses him. And then there's a long-ass pause. So you've been with us as we've walked up the street, and everybody's guns, and hold goddammit, and now it's been bang, bang. One guy's hitting the belly, and and during this long-ass pause, fucking Virgil is with the cane, and he's got a gun. He is a very fun, awkward moment where he's like, get rid of the fucking cane and get his gun out. Frank McLowry is stumbling and dying. I mean, he's like, doing, you've seen the movie, you know how he goes. Yeah. Doc takes a step closer to Tom McLowry, who's moving slowly towards his horse. Ike, at this point, everything has been so still. No more guns have fired. Ike breaks the silence and the stillness by just running as fast as he can towards Wyatt and sort of awkwardly wrestling with him. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't appear to be shooting. He's just sort of grabbing at him and like trying to take him down or something. And Wyatt says to Ike, the fight's commenced. Go to fighting or get away. And Ike Clant looks at him and then fucking
Yoop.
he runs through a store and out the back, and Ike Clanton's fucking gone. Right? And Frank, who's dying, and Billy, who's about to be dying, just start firing rapidly. Bam, 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 bam. Both of them, to the point where we don't know exactly whose bullets hit whom, but Virgil gets hit in the calf, on the back of one leg. Morgan gets hit in the back. It kind of catches a vertebrae, but he's fine. He's not mortally wounded. Tom McLaury, I told you, was already going to his horse to get that gun. He's over the saddle. We don't know if he had a gun already and was aiming over the saddle, or if he's reaching over the saddle to get that gun that's sitting in the holster. But the horse isn't cool with any of this. And the horse starts bucking. And at some point, Tom is fully exposed, which is when Doc Holliday, the shotgun blast leaves like 19 buckshot holes all down his right side, and he stumbles away, not feeling great, of course. At this point, Frank McLaury is in the street. He's exhausted, and he has Doc in his sights. And he holds up the gun and says, "I've got you now." And what does Doc say?
Blaze away. You're a daisy if you have.
Right?
I love the first part more than the second part. Blaze away.
You're a daisy if you have.
Oh my God.
And how do we know he said that? Because so many people heard it.
Yep.
And it was perfectly in his character to have said it. Nobody had any reason to not believe it. He and Frank fire at each other at the same instant. And Morgan is also firing at Frank. Frank dies, and Doc gets a graze. Just a kind of a line. But he does yell, "I'm shot through." I'm sure it ruined his clothes, which is devastating.
Yeah.
And there are no more bullets. As a matter of fact, our guy, Billy Clanton, isn't quite dead. And he has been firing and firing and firing, and he's out. And he looks to a merchant who's sort of out there, and he says, "Give me some ammo." And he just takes his gun from him, and kind of we're done now.
Yeah.
Such a fight's done.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to make it. And we've got Frank at the end of that. Frank and Tom McLaury are dead. Billy Clanton, Ike's younger brother, is dead. Virgil's hurt. Morgan's hurt. Doc's kind of hurt. And Wyatt ain't got a
Scratch. Nothing.
Now, here's where the HILFing, I was like, God damn it, now what do I fucking do? Because to your point, that's Wyatt doesn't get a scratch. This is not Wyatt's HILF.
No.
And this isn't even really the HILF of Tombstone or the gunfight at the OK Corral. This is Doc motherfucking Holliday. And you gave me an assignment, which was myth versus fact and what happened after Tombstone. To that, though, I'm going to give just the quick hits about what happens after the shootout, because it's fucking nuts. And what the movie, of course, doesn't, because there's a trial. Insane. It's a whole HILF all on its own. It dominated the national news as it existed at the time. The judge's ultimate decision at the end of this trial is the Earps aren't great. That was really pretty dumb what happened there. And they're not guilty, because we're in motherfucking Tombstone, baby.
Yep.
And these drunken assholes had guns and should have left town a while ago. And it is perfectly reasonable to say that the Earps acted within the official capacity of their duties, and they are acquitted. Mm-hmm. That is, of course, not the end. The Cowboys are not satisfied, surprise, with that verdict. They take their revenge first. They hunt down and attempt to assassinate Virgil, injure him for life. They assassinate Morgan in front of Wyatt. That scene is portrayed virtually identically to the historical record in the Tombstone movie. He's playing pool. He's shot in the back. Wyatt holds him. It's terrible.
And his last words were, "Don't let him get you, brother."
You don't have to be a historian or a movie buff to know Wyatt is filled with a righteous rage. Mm-hmm. And Virgil can't ride with him, and Morgan's dead, and he's got his brother, Doc Holliday.
Yep.
The Vendetta ride, get thee hence, consume every fuckable nugget of the Vendetta ride. The bottom line is, though, they got a list. They know who the guys are, and they just head out to get them. And it just reinforces, if you think the Earps are good guys, they are out on a justified, righteous, to bring these bad guys to justice. If you're not, they are just continuing to hunt down men who are no worse than they are, who have committed no worse crimes than they have. And this is a purely personal thing. And both sides have excellent points.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
The bottom line is, though, the vendetta, for better or worse, is over. The vendetta Vendetta. All right? And we did the thing.
Yep.
And everyone splits. And Doc is in a bind. He was not as targeted as the Earp brothers were by the cowboys. They did not consider him an enemy in the same way until now. Now he is.
Yep.
So now he can't go back to Tombstone and start dealing faro again. He has burned that bridge. And Sheriff Behan has taken a clear side that he is out to arrest the Earps. And the Earps and Doc Holliday are criminals. And he wants them to come back to Tombstone and face justice. So he can't go back there. I'm so excited about this part. Oh my God. It's been my ace. I'm so excited. Doc Holliday is arrested in Denver by a guy named Perry Mallon.
Oh, God, this guy. This fucking guy.
Doc Holliday's living in Pueblo, and he's not doing great. He's sicker. He's on laudanum and whiskey, which not great.
Well, it's
a general
because
prescription.
They were saying that, well, the whiskey, it'll help with your consumption as well.
Sure. I say that to myself all the time. But it's not making him a great dealer at cards. It's not making him a nicer guy. It's not, cooling things down. And he is sort of dealing with this post-Tombstone fame. And he's in Pueblo, and this weird little ferrety-looking guy, they describe him as these red hair, he's kind of short, he's got ferrety eyes and a weird little mouth.
Like a squinty rat face.
Squinty rat face. And he says to Doc, it's you. You saved my life once in San Francisco. And Doc's like, what the fuck? I don't even know you, man. You're mistaken, he says.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Denver, doesn't think anything of this guy, never thinks about him again. Then he goes to the city of Denver, and this same rat-faced little weirdo jumps into the middle of the street with guns aimed at Doc and says, I've got you now. And he's got the sheriff with him, and Doc's under arrest. And this guy, Perry Mallon, talk about putting on a show. You, Doc Holliday, you killed my partner, and I have been in pursuit of Doc Holliday for 7 years. And all these years, my dear partner, and Doc is like, oh my God. I mean, flash from the end of the day, they're sitting in the jail, and this guy still has his guns on Doc, who's not armed, monologuing. And Doc's like, Jesus, get your guns off me. There's nothing I can do. I'm here. You've got me. I'm not running away. And he continues with this. Doc Holliday is the most bloodthirsty, murderous criminal to have ever been. And this Perry Mallon is building up this legend of Doc Holliday that long precedes the gunfight at the OK Corral, pins a number of bloody, malicious, terrible, which sound familiar.
Yeah.
Because these things do happen, and people are perpetrating these kinds of crimes. And people are like, oh my God, and it kind of makes sense given his reputation. But this guy just keeps going on. It doesn't take people that long to eventually be like, wait. Perry Mallon. And they watch him and they follow him, and he gets a money transfer from Sheriff Behan in Tombstone. And they're like, wait, are you just here to arrest him and take him back to Tombstone? Or are you just a hired? And he's like, no. I'm 7 years. You killed my brother.
Remember that whole thing?
Yeah, that whole thing. And at the same time that people are starting to piece together that Perry Mallon's full of shit, Doc's friends have gotten word that he's arrested and being taken back to Tombstone, where he will be murdered.
Yep.
So they start telling stories, similar, publicly, newspapers, monologuing about true and real stories of how amazing Doc Holliday is and all the good things he's done. And yes, he's a gangster. Yes, he's pulled a gun, but it was for the right reasons, all this kind of stuff. Which means the newspapers of every stripe, from every political angle, are screaming, true or false, the same message, which is Doc Holliday fucking rules.
Yeah.
Right? Now, all of this and more But the bottom line is Doc's still dying. Mm-hmm. That ticking clock that he got back in St. Louis when he was 21 has been tick, 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 tick. Remember if I said, if you remember, I said the lifespan was about 15, maybe 25 years.
Yeah.
And he is now 36.
It's about that time.
It's about that time.
Yeah.
He dies in Glenwood Springs, Colorado on November 8th, 1887. He's 36 years old. And it is important that his obituary notes that he died with his boots off.
Yep. That was a big thing. That's how you wanted to go. As a matter of fact, kind of going back to Morgan, one of his last things he said is, "Are my boots off?"
Take my boots off.
Yeah.
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 Lay me out straight and take my boots off.
Take my boots off. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kate was not with him. She said in her book she was.
Yeah.
She was not.
No.
Wyatt was not with him. The movie says he was. He was not. In a letter that the city of Glenwood Springs wrote to Doc Holliday's family, they said that he was surrounded by caring hands and loving words. And I believe that was true. I'm sure he made friends, certainly, wherever he was. And now, here we are all these years later. Doc has been digested and regurgitated as an American icon and a figure that has changed throughout. In the 1930s, for example, this whole story, well known, back in the news, some of the people involved were still alive. Wyatt's the hero because Wyatt's the lawman, right?
Yeah,
This is the FBI, the untouchables. We're finally getting these criminals under wraps. And it was like, Wyatt was that guy. Wyatt was the guy behind the badge who found order in the Old West. We love fucking Wyatt. In the 1950s, post-World War II, when it was getting a little more revolutionary, people were like, fuck the law. Nobody knows what the man is up to. The government is big and scary and the banks and all this shit. Doc's the hero, the best friend. I'm not fighting your war. I'm fighting for the guy next to me. And he was re-elevated in the 1950s as the one that we should be watching. And in the 1990s, they were just like, look at this jawline. I mean, my God, with the jawline. And who knows what he'll be now. And maybe now, because we live in an era where trials are all the drama, maybe we'll retell the Tombstone OK Corral gunfight story again and focus on the politics.
See, that's the thing. I wish, like when we talked about the trial earlier, it's like, imagine like A Few Good Men kind of thing, like in A Few Good Men, but like that based on that trial.
Right.
And you just do flashbacks to different spots. That's fucking interesting right there.
Well, if you get hurt enough.
Oh, bite your tongue.
You and me. We'll sit down.
I'll have another surgery and I'll hole up here. Hey, family, I'm going to go hang with Dawn. We're going to write a thing for a while.
Yeah. I'll be your Huckleberry. Oh, my friend Brandon Gibson, that was a ride.
I could sit here for the rest of the week and just keep talking about this just over and over again. And just watching you, that's the one thing I love about you. You can't see Dawn when you're listening to this, but when you see the glint in your eye, and this goes back to when we started talking about pirates initially.
Yeah.
When you see the excitement and the smile that goes all the way and wraps around your head twice, it's just, you can't, the energy is infectious. And I found myself like, I'm like, I should say something. No, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to interrupt this. This is fantastic. And just watching you is so great with your knowledge and then being able to connect what I know with what you know. And I'm just kind of like pushing the energy. I don't know if the smile stayed on my face the whole time, but I feel like it did.
What a joy.
But just being here and sharing this with you is pretty fucking awesome.
Oh, man, I am so grateful. I mean, you served up a HILF, an epic HILF. Are you kidding me? I mean, this was such a treat. It was such a gift. And I'm just so, so grateful. And I think you and me should go to like the Cowboy Museum.
Oh my God. Done.
Right?
Done.
Thanks again to Brandon Gibson. And when he and I take that field trip to the Cowboy Museum, you'll be the first to hear about it because you already follow me on Instagram, right? At HILFpodcast and Dawn_Brody, Brodey, if it slipped your mind. And please keep up with Brandon. You can click on our show notes to follow him on all the stuff. And you'll also see the links to his Hulu show, Spilled Paint, as well as all my Doc Holliday history sources, as always. Now, as for you and me, dear listener, it's summer, man, and I'm taking a short break, which means your next new episode will be the first week of August. Now, if that just suddenly gave you a burst of panic, don't. All right, I'm not going to be all the way gone, baby. I'll still be on social media. You can see what I'm up to there. I'll also be dropping some fun summer reading suggestions. I'll see you. And in the meantime, please keep your HILF suggestions coming in because I love them. And I've been digging into them to do those HILF quickies. And when I pick yours, you'll get a shout out and everyone will think you're so cool. Now, how do you do it? You email me, hilfpodcast@gmail.com, or messaging me on social media @hilfpodcast. As always, Kat Perkins is the amazing voice you hear in our theme song. And this has been HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody, reminding you that history is a party and everybody's coming. Don't forget the sunscreen.